What if I told you that having the perfect husband nearly drove me insane? That being desired too much can destroy a marriage faster than cheating ever could? My name is Destiny, and this is the story of how I lost everything, by getting exactly what I asked for. Everyone thinks I'm crazy. My friends, my family, even strangers on the internet. They all say the same thing: you had a faithful husband who adored you, and you threw it all away. But they don't know the whole story. I'm 29 years old, and 6 months ago, my entire world imploded. My husband Robert, 31, reliable, responsible, seemed perfect on paper. He paid the bills, came home every night, never gambled or drank too much. The suburban dream, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. Because sometimes, perfect can be your worst nightmare. When Robert and I first got together 7 years ago, I thought I'd won the lottery. This man worshipped me. Every time I walked past him, he'd grab me, kiss me, whisper in my ear. He made me feel like a supermodel just for existing. My friends were jealous. Their boyfriends barely noticed when they dressed up, but Robert? He'd get turned on just from me wearing pajamas. He'd tell me constantly how beautiful I was, how much he wanted me, how he couldn't keep his hands off me. At first, it was intoxicating. But here's what nobody tells you about being put on a pedestal: eventually, you start feeling like a statue instead of a person. By year 4, something changed. Or maybe I finally noticed what had been happening all along. I work in healthcare administration, one of the most stressful jobs on the planet. Insurance companies, angry patients, doctors with God complexes, mountains of paperwork. I'd come home mentally and emotionally drained, just wanting to exist as a human being for 5 minutes. But Robert would be there, waiting to pounce the second I walked through the door. Not in a "how was your day, honey" way. In a "you look so hot in that uniform" way. He never asked about my actual day. Never wanted to hear about my problems. Never offered to help with the stress in my life. But he never missed an opportunity to comment on my body or grab some part of me. I couldn't hug him without feeling him get hard. I couldn't bend over to pick something up without him making some comment. I couldn't even be sick with the flu without him finding ways to touch me inappropriately. It was like he couldn't see me as anything other than a walking fantasy. 6 months ago, I was having the worst week of my career. Our computer system crashed, we lost patient files, I was staying late every night trying to fix everything. I was barely keeping my head above water. I was in our bedroom, sorting through Robert's work shirts, when he came up behind me. Arms around my waist, kissing my neck, and immediately, I could feel him getting hard against my back. Something inside me snapped. Here I was, dealing with actual crisis situations, and Robert's response was to treat me like his personal stress relief toy. I turned around, looked him dead in the eye, and said the words that would destroy our marriage. "I am so sick of you constantly sexualizing me. It's honestly disgusting." The look on his face, it was like I'd physically struck him. But I wasn't done. 7 years of frustration came pouring out. "I can't even sort laundry without you getting turned on and pawing at me," I told him. "I'm not just a body for you to grab whenever you feel like it. I'm a person with real feelings and real problems." Robert tried to interrupt, saying he was just showing affection, but I was past caring. "That's exactly the problem," I said. "You can't see me as anything other than a sexual object. You haven't asked me about my day once this week, but you haven't missed a single opportunity to grab my butt or make some comment about how hot I look." I laid down the law: no more grabbing. No more sexual comments. No more getting aroused every time we hug. I needed him to start seeing me as a person instead of a sex object. Robert nodded. Said he'd try to be more respectful. That night, he slept on the couch. I thought we'd had a breakthrough. I was so wrong. The next morning, something felt off. Robert was polite but distant. Cold in a way he'd never been before. He made his own coffee instead of making me a cup. Said goodbye without kissing me or even really looking at me. Days turned into weeks. Robert's new behavior became our normal. He stopped complimenting me entirely. Stopped initiating any physical contact, even innocent hugs or goodbye kisses. Stopped making flirty comments or jokes. He basically stopped showing any sign that he found me attractive at all. When I tried to talk to him about finding middle ground, Robert would say, "I don't want to make you uncomfortable. I'm trying to respect your boundaries like you asked." But there was something in his tone that felt deliberately obtuse. Like he was missing the point on purpose. I started missing some of the attention I'd been complaining about. Not the constant groping, but the feeling of being desired and appreciated. But every time I tried to explain this to Robert, he'd act confused. "I thought you said my physical attraction to you was disgusting," he'd say. "I thought you wanted me to see you as a person instead of a sexual object." He was technically doing what I'd demanded, but completely missing the spirit of what I'd been trying to communicate. The worst part? Robert seemed perfectly fine with this new arrangement. He wasn't fighting to win back my affection or trying to find ways to show love that I'd be comfortable with. He just accepted these new rules and moved on. Like he didn't actually care whether we had physical intimacy or emotional connection. Our conversations became purely practical. Bills. Schedules. Grocery lists. We were like roommates who happened to share a last name. And Robert seemed completely content with that. 5 months into this Cold War, Robert went on a business trip to Dallas. Usually, trips meant constant texting, phone calls, missing each other. This time? Nothing. A few basic check-ins. No missing you messages. No countdown to coming home. For the first time in 7 years, we were both completely fine being separated. When Robert came back, something fundamental had changed. There was this distance in his eyes that hadn't been there before. He was polite but gone. Already gone. Sunday evening, he asked if we could talk. My stomach dropped. "I did a lot of thinking in Dallas," he said. "I don't think we're compatible anymore." The words felt like a physical blow. "We were compatible," he continued. "But we stopped wanting the same things. I want to be with someone who appreciates how I show love instead of finding it disgusting. I want someone who makes me feel desired instead of making me feel like a creep for being attracted to my own wife." Then came the crushing blow. There was a woman at the conference who was flirting with me. Nothing happened, but for the first time in months, I felt like someone actually wanted me around. She made me remember what it feels like to be appreciated instead of just tolerated. I tried to fight it. Offered counseling, promised to be more affectionate, suggested we take a vacation. But Robert was done. Completely, totally done. "You can't take back what you said," he told me. "You can't undo the past 6 months. And honestly, I don't want to go back to wondering if every kiss or touch is going to be criticized." Within a month, Robert had filed for divorce. Swift, painless, final. 4 months later, I saw him at the grocery store with someone new. A woman about 26, pretty in this effortless way. They looked happy. Genuinely happy. I watched Robert put his arm around her waist, watched her lean into him, both of them laughing about something on his phone. What destroyed me wasn't just seeing Robert with someone else, it was seeing how relaxed and alive he looked. This was the Robert I'd fallen in love with 7 years ago. The woman seemed to genuinely enjoy his attention. When he whispered in her ear, she giggled. When he kissed her forehead in the checkout line, she smiled like it was the best part of her day. I was watching Robert be himself with someone who appreciated him instead of constantly criticizing him for it. Standing in that parking lot, watching them drive away together, I realized the brutal truth: Robert wasn't miserable without me. He wasn't regretting his decision. He was thriving with someone who wanted the same things he did. And I was alone, finally understanding what I'd actually lost. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. By then, his relationship with the new woman was clearly serious. My desperate attempts to reconcile had become pathetic and embarrassing. Now, a year later, I'm still single and still trying to figure out what went wrong. I see their updates on social media, trips to Europe, something Robert and I had talked about for years but never did. She gets the version of Robert that I helped create, the one who learned from our relationship and became a better partner because of it. Meanwhile, I'm left explaining to potential dates why my marriage ended, trying to make them understand that I wasn't being unreasonable when I asked for boundaries and respect. But every time I tell the story, I see the same confusion in their eyes that I saw in my friends and family. I know Robert is probably telling people that I was impossible to please, that nothing he did was ever good enough. But that's not the complete story. He's leaving out the part where he objectified me and made me feel uncomfortable in my own home. Robert got to walk away and start fresh with all the lessons I taught him about what women really want. But I'm the one who's truly free now, free from a relationship where I was constantly objectified. That's what I keep telling myself anyway. And most days, I almost believe it's actually true.